Since the release of Splatoon 2 over 2 years ago, I have consistently released content dealing with various aspects of the game, or just videos of me more or less having fun. However, my journey in Splatoon 2 progress has been rather aimless and outright random with no goals or anything. Yes, I've reached X rank in every mode, but that can't be the be-all and end-all of Splatoon 2's gameplay. Upon closer analysis of my game's progress, I found that there's actually a lot of accomplishments that I haven't achieved yet in the game. The first on the Splatoon 2 bucket list is to acquire a hero weapon replica. In order to obtain a hero weapon replica, a player must complete every level with the corresponding hero weapon in Octo Canyon. This is including each sector boss as well as the final boss at the end of the game. I've always had my gripes when it came to the single player modes of Splatoon and never really enjoyed them enough to grind out a hero weapon, but motivation kicked in and I started my journey. The weapon I decided to obtain was the Hero Blaster replica, because I really like the glowing details on the barrel of the blaster. In my opinion, it's the coolest looking blaster in the game, just above the Grim Range blaster. At the time I decided to go through with this, I had already cleared Sector 1 stages and the boss, so I could move straight to Sector 2, Suction Cup Lookout. The first stage we visit is Enter the Octo Hurler, Let It Roll. The first time I completed this stage was with the eponymous roller, so going through with a blaster was trivial at best. Oddly enough, I didn't get a new record, so maybe I had an easier time with the roller after all, but that was so long ago that I don't remember. Next up is the Octo Park, which I completed already with the hero dualies. It was a stage full of rails, and since the blaster shoots very slowly in comparison to the hero dualies, it wasn't easy. It was at this point that I realized I needed to upgrade my hero blaster to increase the fire rate and make stages easier, but I didn't have nearly enough fish eggs. This would be something I'd keep in mind as I went through the stages. No new record. Octo Zeppelin Invasion was a stage I'd beaten with the hero charger, and upon entry it was easy to see why. The stage is full of grapplings, the devices where if you shoot them you soar towards them. As you could guess, the stage is tedious with a blaster rather than a charger. And due to my poor awareness, there were times where I couldn't find the next grappling, or where I have to make a leap of faith and shoot the next one because of the blaster's range. Just like before, I didn't get a new record on completion. Stage 7, Back Alley Cleanup, is a stage where you have to use a hero shot for the first time through. You have to ride the giant squeegees to complete it, and I didn't have too much of a problem here. It did serve as a reminder that using the blaster to ink walls is bad enough, but with a squeegee involved, it gets even more tedious. Ironically enough, this was the first stage that I got a new record on, at 5 minutes and 23 seconds, which is really surprising, but I wasn't necessarily rushing my first playthrough. Spinning Campground is our next stage, and it features ink furlers, which unfurl when you shoot them. What should have been a walk in the park ended up being the first stage where I died. What? Stop. Oh, you can't. The slow rate of fire from the blaster made it difficult to keep the ink furlers unfurled when the enemy shot at them. By the time I completed the stage, I was 2/3 of the way of upgrading the firing speed of the hero blaster. Octoling Strike is the first stage of the campaign mode to feature Octolings from the first game. The stage is based off of an unquestionably non-multiplayer viable version of the Reef. You have to fight the Octolings while retrieving 8 mini Zapfish all across the map. Since I figured out last time that there's lights coming from the top of the pods that let you see from across the map, I didn't get lost, so getting a new record was expected. I obtained it, beating the stage in 2 minutes and 19 seconds. The Octolings weren't too difficult, but shooting at them with a blaster was a bit annoying. Then it's the Showdown, which is the first boss of this run, a battle against the Octo Samurai. Undoubtedly, the match goes on without a hitch since I'm not forced to fight him with a roller. The blaster made it almost feel too easy, and I defeated him with a new record of 2 minutes and 19 seconds. With that, we head off to Sector 3. The first stage of this new area is Octoseeker Shakedown, and on the first visit you have to use the hero slasher to complete the stage. The nighttime visual effect of the stage makes it hold a type of beauty that's not present in a lot of Octo Canyon stages. The level was relatively easy, though there were a few points here and there where I get lost, and a part where I perished because I didn't equate physics into the situation. Oh, are you serious? Besides the one death, this stage went on without a hitch, though there was no new record, possibly due to getting lost. A funny story, I end up skipping the next stage because I took a break, came back, and assumed I'd already beaten the level. We'll come back to it later. Octo Resort Spring, Stage 12, is a stage filled with bouncy pads. I've never really liked the bouncy pads, even in the Splatfest, mostly because they result in death, but hero mode has never been too hard or unforgiving. I passed the level with flying colors and scored a new record. The next stage, Dancing Floors, is a stage that you have to complete with the hero Splatling first. I'm thinking if I pursued another weapon, it would likely be a hero Splatling, so this stage is one stage down at least. The level has targets that spin when you shoot them, but directing them with a blaster can sometimes make them turn a bit too much. There's no real precision, like the heavy Splatling when you can simply shoot and then go back into the ink. This wasn't a stage where I had to worry about precision too much, however. I finished with a new record of 6 minutes and 14 seconds, which is still a rather long time for a hero mode stage. If there was ever a stage I got lost on, it was Parking Garage, Stage 14. I think this was the first stage where I'd obviously lost my way and got frustrated my first playthrough, but that's only because my awareness was terrible at the time. I still got a little lost at a certain part, but I ended up finishing the stage just a few seconds over the first time I completed it. The next stage is the stage before the boss, and it's at this point where a trend starts to form. Every single pre-boss stage is a stage where you fight the Octolings and obtain mini Zapfish to complete them. This time the stage is Humpback Pump Track, and I don't know what it is, but I always have trouble when it comes to fighting Octolings. Now that I know the trick for finding the Zapfish, I can rush through these stages, so I fought only when it was absolutely necessary. Lives for Days features a recurring boss from the first game, the Octostomp. He's got a new few gimmicks, the most alarming of which was the face splitting out into 3 and sweeping the stage. There's a way to cheese the last phase of this boss if you hide down in this ditch area. He didn't pose too much of a threat when I figured that out, but I feel like this stage would have been a lot easier with pretty much any other weapon. With Neo Octostomp out of the way, it's time for Sector 4, Slime Skin Garrison. A secret bowling alley is a stage that is the exact image of what the name displays. Upon entry, you're greeted with massive bowling balls. These Octoballers prove to be a nuisance because I have not improved my rate of fire yet, and because it would take more than one indirect shot to break an Octoballer. My aim isn't exactly perfect, and the blaster shots move slowly. Next is Octo Commander Fortress. There's nothing too noteworthy of this stage, its gimmick being the new enemy Octo Commander, a larger Octarian wielding a heavy splatling in its mouth. I had more trouble with the awkwardly shaped revolving platforms than these creatures. I finished it with a new record of 3 minutes and 19 seconds. Now, Towering Heights is a stage with a lot of verticality to it. That proves to be a bit of a hassle for a Hero Blaster. At this point, I realize that my eggs are over the 1500 that I need. However, my attention span is too small to remember this when I leave the stage, and I just hurry on to the next one. I blame this on me wanting to get this challenge done as quickly as possible. The next stage at this point should have been the Experimentorium, but this is a stage that you're forced to use a Hero Blaster on initially. Since this is the case, I can move straight on to Propeller Land. Welcome to my least favorite level in the game. Propeller Land is an excruciatingly sluggish, agonizing stage that has to be the most humdrum and protracted level that the developers vomited out and stuffed into the game. I would expect a level of this length, perhaps a stage or two right before the final boss. I do die once in a scenario that's completely of my own doing, which is particularly upsetting on a stage with such monotony. I don't get it. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, ah! Oh my god! I finished in 10 minutes and somehow still managed to get a new record. Finally, we're out of that dump and onto a real stage. Sort of. Octolings Ahoy follows the same pattern mentioned in the previous sector, where the room just before the boss is an Octoling battleground. This one is set in a mutilated version of Murray Towers that I'd certainly never wish to play in. Maybe. It looks the extremely casual sort of fun. I beeline it for the mini Zapfish, but I can say with certainty that this is one of the most annoying Octoling stages, because of the 2 snipers in the center, whose reach seemed to extend into the cosmos. The stage was a pushover after they were destroyed. Reminded that I needed to upgrade my blaster to the next level, I decided to do that just before fighting the next boss. Now it shoots at the rate of a rapid blaster with the normal blaster power and comes in a cool red decal instead of the normal blue glowing one. Nice. And then we make it to the boss, a new one at that. I don't think it was foreshadowing the Octo expansion exactly, but the name of the stage is the Sanitizerium, which is not a word, but does include sanitize, which was a key plot point in the DLC. This boss is called Octo Shower, and once I figured out how to fight it again, it didn't pose too big of a threat. Though there was a really goofy death that I was really ashamed of at the time. Good game. What?! It was on his last hit too. With the Octo Shower out of the way, we can head on to the last area of the story mode, Cephalon HQ. Cephalon HQ is a huge hub world map with a combination of elements from every stage, and I had trouble finding all the stages the first time I went through this. Luckily, I can just jump to the stages now, so it's not something I'll have to worry about this time. It's here that the levels begin to ramp up in average playtime, fitting for the last area, but not nearly the same amount of time as Propeller Land, that piece of trash. Underground Expressway is a stage that the hero brush is used first, so going in with a ranged weapon is a bit of a benefit. It features the invisible floor gimmick, which is a lot less tedious when you have a ranged weapon and can paint further in front of you. I got a new record in 7 minutes and 32 seconds. Heading over to the Octo Galaxy, we find a stage full of rails and spinning pillars where my inadequacies are really called into question. The stage is really scenic with how the rails trail in beautiful patterns around treacherous obstacles. Truly worthy of a last sub-area stage, and one of the few rail stages that I enjoy, if not only for its looks. It wasn't too hard with a blaster. Transfer Junction is another one of those longer stages, but that's because I had a hard time hitting the cube the way I wanted to with a blaster since you have to coat the entire surface. I die in the beginning. Actually twice. 3 times. Ah! This level's a bit of a jerk. It was the most I died so far in the run, since the rest of this is pretty trivial for an experienced player such as myself. In fact, the mention of difficulty segues perfectly into the next stage, which is apparently hard considering I died the same number of times. But with a name like Platform Madhouse, and me not liking the platforming mechanics of single player, I went in with cognizance of the situation. It really caused a problem near the end, hitting the target with a blaster and often overshooting, and through all of this, even though it took longer than Propeller Land, it wasn't nearly as boring. The stage is longer at 12 minutes, but I still like it more than that one piece of trash. In between stages here is when I find out that there's a record section in the menu and it shows what stages I've beaten with which weapons. For some reason, I never knew about this. Remember that one stage I skipped back in Sector 3? This is when I found out that I actually skipped it, and if I hadn't opened up this menu, I probably would have went to each stage individually to figure out which one didn't have the hero blaster clear. We take a detour and go back to Floating Garden. It reminds me of how trivial the beginning stages are, so it gets completed with nothing really worthy of note. Hopping back to Cephalon HQ, we go to Paradise Lane, the only stage, I repeat, the only stage where I lose all of my lives and get kicked out. A while back I mentioned that you couldn't control how hard you shoot the targets when you hit them with a direct from the blaster. There's no way to be precise, and this is the stage where it comes back to bite me. There's a section at the very end where if you direct it with a blaster you will die, plain and simple.
What?! You better not push me.
I learned this at a plodding pace. In my opinion, just because I was completely wiped once, I'd say this stage is the hardest for the hero blaster clear. I do get a new record though, which is nice. Octoling Workout is the penultimate stage of Octo Canyon and as such is an Octoling level, taking place on Muscle Forge Fitness. Despite it being the final Octoling level, I found it easier to beat this stage than the one with the two snipers in the center. I rushed through to get all the mini Zapfish and get a new record because of the aforementioned reason of knowing where they all are, and not just wandering around aimlessly and getting bullied by the abysmal Octoling AI. With that stage out of the way, we finally reached the climax of the game, our rematch with Octavio. Now I haven't entered this fight since the very first one, but I was tickled by the fact that the dialogue had changed. When you fight Octavio again, Marie will question why Callie put the glasses on again, and she responds with the most superficial statement I've seen in Splatoon. Callie put the glasses back on, only because they look good on her, which they do not. The battle goes pretty much how you would expect. It's a bit on the easier side, and with the hero blaster being able to hit the fist back at DJ Octavio with a single direct, it almost felt too easy. It was certainly easier than the Octo Shower from the San Azarium. Even though it was easier, it was still my favorite boss fight in Octo Canyon, and a fitting final boss for an easy story mode. After defeating DJ Octavio in record time, Sheldon came through with a message. I'll finally be able to purchase the hero blaster replica from the shop for turf war purposes. That's when I rushed off and got my very first hero weapon.
Hey! Hey! I got a hero! Hey! Well, that. Ugh, I'm in S+9? Yuck. That wraps up that. So I suppose that this is the end, and I will see all of you another time. Number 1 is off the bucket list. So, I suppose I'll catch you guys later. Peace.